Welcome to Holiday in Song 2017, presented by the students of George D. Steckel Elementary School.
Steckel Elementary is one of the 5 group schools that make up the Whitehall Copley School District. Our school has been presenting this program of holiday cheer for over 40 years.
Wow, 40 years? That's longer than some of our teachers have been alive.
Every one of our over 600 Steckel students is given the opportunity to film a holiday song with their class. You may hear them perform some favorite carols that you've been singing with your families for years.
You will also hear some less familiar selections from Belgium, Sweden, France, and even one from right here in Pennsylvania.
Let's get started with the show. We hope you will enjoy watching us as much as we have enjoyed preparing our program for you.
In the 10th century, King Wenceslaus lived in Bohemia.
That area is now part of the Czech Republic.
Wenceslaus was well known for his kindness to the poor people.
Mrs. Doolin and Mrs. Rajivi's classes will now sing a song tell us about how he cared for others.
Check it out.
That joke goes over really big in Bohemia.
Up on the Housetop was written in 1860 by Benjamin Hamby.
In his home state of Ohio, he and his father helped slaves find freedom through the Underground Railroad.
This Christmas selection was his most popular composition.
Here's Mrs. Cusco's and Mrs. Strauss's classes singing their version of Up on the Housetop.
Remember, be careful when you are singing Up on the Housetop.
You may fall off.
Up on the housetop, the reindeer paws. Out jumps good old Santa Claus. Down through the chimney with lots of toys.
Angels We Have Heard on High is based upon an old French carol known as Angels in Our Countryside.
The song was not known outside of the French-speaking world until 1862 when it was translated into English.
Here's Mrs. Keeneggs and Mr. Lottie's third grade class to sing in English, Latin, and French.
Ooh la la.
Angels we have heard on high, sweetly singing o'er the plains, and the mountains in recline, echoing their joyous strains. Gloria in excelsis Shepherds, why this jubilee? Why your joyous strains prolong? What the gladsome tidings be, which inspire heavenly song? Gloria in excelsis
The melody of Deck the Hall comes from Wales in the United Kingdom.
Remember, a bough is a tree or bush branch, and the blazing Yule in verse 2 refers to a special fireplace log burnt on Christmas Day.
Here to perform this fun carol for you are the second graders from Mrs. Lily's and Mrs. Nicholas's classes.
Let's deck those halls, man.
Deck the halls with bells of holly, full la 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 la. 'Tis the season to be jolly, full la 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 la. Donning our gay apparel, full la 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 la. Drone the ancient Yuletide carol, full la 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 la. See the blazing Yule before us, full la la.
Miss Kelly and Miss Tomatoes, third graders, are now going to mix an Irish poem with a French Christmas carol. We will take the words of While Shepherds Watch Their Flocks by Night and sing them to the melody of Three Angels Came Down Last Night. We hope you enjoy the result.
Take it away, kids.
Shepherds watch their flocks by night, all seated on the ground. The angel of the Lord came down, and glory shone all around. Fear not, standing for mighty dread, as sees their troubled minds. Glad tidings of great joy I bring to you and all humankind. Noel, angels sang Noel, Gloria in excelsis Deo. To you in David's town this day is born of David's line the Savior, who is Christ the Lord, and a star shall be his heavenly sign. For in a stable you shall find the holy babe displayed, all meekly wrapped in swaddling clothes, and in a manger laid. Noel, angels sang Noel, Gloria in excelsis Deo. Noel, angels sang Noel, Gloria in excelsis Deo.
Our next selection, Here We Come a Caroling, started off as our harvest song. Please explain. If you ever wondered why the lyrics of Christmas song mention caroling among the leaves so green, it can be traced back to the song's early autumn beginnings. Fascinating. Here's Mrs. Hurlbutts and Mrs. Math third graders to sing it for you, man.
Here we come a caroling among the leaves so green. Here we come a wandering so far to be seen. Love and joy come to you, and to you your carols too. And God bless you and send you a
is a carol from the 18th century Cornwall.
Although the word Noel is French for Christmas, this song did not come from France. It's as English as figgy pudding.
Mrs. Gans's and Mrs. Chamberlain's classes will now sing this lovely carol for you.
The Latin lyrics of Adeste Fidelis were probably written in the 13th century.
500 years later, these words were translated into English as O Come All Ye Faithful, and joined with a melody that was probably composed by John Francis Wade.
Miss Petraglia's and Mrs. Raz's third graders will sing the first and third verses of this carol in English,
And the second verse will be sung in Latin.
Come and behold
Night was written to be sung at Christmas Eve Mass in a small church in Austria in 1818.
Wow, 1818? That's 10 years older than the Allentown Band.
The lyrics were written by the church's priest and the music was written by a local school teacher.
Silent Night made its way to America in 1859 when a minister in New York City translated the hymn for his church.
Since that time, it was become one of the most popular of all Christmas songs. It has been translated in 140 languages.
Mr. Schultz's third grade class will sing the first verse in German. Mrs. Jarvis's second graders will join them in the English verses.
Hi, everybody. Please don't change that dial. We'll be back with more acts in just a few moments. I'm Pete Bugby, the principal at Steckel Elementary here in the beautiful Lehigh Valley. Our students are very proud to share their voices with you through this format, and please be sure to stick around to read the scroll of names of all folks who've made a contribution to this great performance. I'm here now with students and teachers from Mrs. Miller's class. They're a group of students who've joined us for the first time this year from our local intermediate unit, and we certainly welcome them, and they've made a great contribution to our school already. The students have a message for you. What do you have to say, kids?
Happy holidays, everyone.
There are at least 3 different Christmas carols known as the Holly and the Ivy.
The one presented here is also known as the Sandsday Carol and was first performed in the English county of Cornwall in the 19th century.
Special lyrics for this carol were written especially for Steckel Elementary School. This song now tells of the traditions of 3 winter holidays, Hanukkah, Christmas, and New Year.
Here are Miss Solomon and Mrs. Waltman, 2nd graders, singing their hearts out for you.
Just after Thanksgiving comes 3 holidays, and we celebrate each one in different ways. There's Hanukkah, Christmas, and New Year's Day. Now listen to our song while the music plays. We'll light a menorah when Hanukkah comes. We'll eat lots of latkes, watch out for the crumbs. We remember the oil that lasted 8 days. And we'll give some presents and sing songs of praise. When Christmas gets near, we'll put up a tree and wait for Santa coming down our chimney. We'll put up a wreath and the mistletoe, and we'll hope that we'll play in lots of snow. The last day of December is New Year's Eve. There's a party in Times Square you will not believe. They stay up till midnight and shout hip hooray. The old year is over, it's New Year's Day. All of us here at Steckel are filled with good cheer. Happy Hanukkah, Merry Christmas, and Happy New Year. We wish you season's greetings right here on TV. And we hope that your holidays are happy as can be. TV, and we hope that your holidays are happy as can be. And we hope that your holidays are happy as can be.
The melody of O Christmas Tree comes from a part of Europe which is now the country of Poland.
Over the years, this old tune has been used for many different purposes. Did you know that it's used as the tune for the state song of Maryland?
In 1824, German lyrics about a fir tree were added to this wonderful melody.
Listen carefully to part 3 and you'll hear Miss Kalina and Miss Heinzelman's 3rd graders give you directions to our school.
Oh, Christmas tree, with faithful leaves unchanging. Oh, Christmas tree, with faithful leaves unchanging.
1857, Englishman James Point published a song called One Horse Open Sleigh.
We know it's better as Jingle Bells.
Mrs. Fatula's and Mrs. George's second graders will now present a rock and roll cover of this all-time favorite.
Dashing through the snow in a one-horse open sleigh, o'er the fields we go, laughing all the way. Bells on long-tail ring, making spirits bright. What fun it is to ride and sing a sleighing song tonight. Jingle bells, jingle all the way. Oh, what fun it is to ride in a one-horse open sleigh. Jingle bells, jingle all the way. Oh, what fun it is to ride in a one-horse open sleigh. A day or two ago, I thought I'd take a ride, but soon Miss Mary Mac was seated by my side. The horse was clean and lank, it looked just like a moose. It got into a drifted bank and cooked our Christmas goose. Jingle bells, jingle all the way. Oh, what fun it is to ride in a one-horse open sleigh. Jingle bells, jingle all the way. Oh, what fun it is to ride in a one-horse open sleigh. Oh, what fun it is to ride in a one-horse open sleigh. Oh, what fun it is to ride in a one-horse open sleigh.
The words of Hark, the Herald Angels Sing were written in 1739 by Charles Wesley.
The music written in 1840 is by the great German composer Felix Mendelssohn.
This beautiful carol was featured in the TV show A Charlie Brown Christmas.
Good grief! Here are the third graders from Mrs. Hurlbut's and Mrs. Mass class to sing it for you.
We're not quite sure who wrote Jolly Old St. Nicholas, but many people think that it was composed by the Canadian country music star Montana Slim.
We're also not quite sure how a guy from Canada got the nickname Montana.
Listen carefully to the verse number 4 as Mrs. Hawks and Mrs. Jefferson's second grade classes sing of what their teachers want for Christmas.
Remember, it's better to be jolly and old than grouchy and young.
Hey, don't I know you?
Whoa.
Jolly old Saint Nicholas, lean your ear this way. Don't you tell a single soul what I'm going to say. Christmas Eve is coming soon, now you dear old man. Whisper what you'll bring to me, tell me if you can. When the clock is striking 12, when I'm fast asleep, down the chimney dark and round, with your pack you'll creep. All the stockings you will find hanging in a row. Mine will be the shortest one, you'll be sure to know. Johnny wants a pair of skates, Susie wants a toy, Nancy wants a storybook, one to bring her joy. As for me, I'm not too sure, so I'll say goodnight. Choose for me, dear Santa Claus, what you think is right. Mrs. Hawk would like some fruit to make Christmas pies. Bring Miss Day a mountain bike for her exercise. Both of them want a telescope so they can see Mars. Santa, I think I would like lots of candy bars. Jolly old Saint Nicholas, lean your ear this way. Don't you tell a single soul what I'm going to say. Christmas Eve is coming soon, now you dear old man. Whisper what you'll bring to me, tell me if you can.
The carol, Infant Holy, is Polish.
Famous people who came from Poland include the great pianist and composer Chopin, scientist Marie Curie, and Pope John Paul II.
Hey, maybe those people sang this Christmas song when they were kids.
I'm not sure, but I do know that Mr. Schultz's third graders love to sing it. Hey, here they are now.
Infant holy, infant lowly, born as better.
The 17th century carol Pat a Pan comes from Burgundy in France.
The song mentions two instruments. The tambourine looks like a small conga drum, while the flute that we sing about refers to a shepherd's pipe.
Listen carefully and you'll hear Mrs. Canes and Mr. Lottie's third graders sing the song's final verse in French.
Sacre bleu!
The Christmas carol called The Simple Birth comes from Belgium.
Ooh, I love their waffles.
It was probably written in the 500 years ago and sung in Flemish. Here it is in English, sung by Mrs. Lily's and Mrs. Nicholas's classes.
Second graders rule.
Here's the only Christmas carol on our program whose melody was written in Pennsylvania.
Civil War veteran William J. Kirkpatrick wrote this version of Away in the Major in 1895.
When not composing music, Mr. Kirkpatrick worked as a carpenter.
Mrs. Petraglia and Mrs. Raz's third graders will now sing this lovely Christmas lullaby for you. The men who wrote the words and the music of O Come Little Children never met one another.
In 1832, a German book publisher took the words of the poem The Children at the Manger and combined them with a tune called How Charming, How Pleasant.
The result was a beautiful carol which is a favorite of young and old.
It's also a favorite of Mrs. Doolin's and Mrs. Ruggieri's third graders.
Child.
Here is We Wish You a Merry Christmas.
The figgy pudding mentioned in this song is a dessert popular in merry old England.
It was delicious.
Yum, yum. Anyway, here are the second graders from Mrs. Fatula's and Mrs. George's classes to sing this carol for you.
Well, that's our show for this year. Before we leave you, we would like to thank a few people.
We would like to give a special thanks to our principal, Mr. Peter Bugby, for his leadership and support.
Thanks to all of our groovy teachers for helping to make this program possible.
Thanks to our superintendent, Dr. Lori Hackett, and the administration and school board of the Whitehall Copley School District.
And thanks to all of you for taking time to watch our program. We really hope that you have enjoyed it.
All of the Steckel students and staff would like to wish you a wonderful holiday season and a safe and healthy new year.
Mwah.